we are simply not going to go along to get along the Republican effort to continue to gut the health care of the American people. This is a cost of living issue, and it's a life or death issue for millions of Americans.
And that was House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries making his case yesterday when he joined Squawk Box. Joining us now, New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, it's good to see you. Is there a possibility of a year extension? What happened? Isn't that what you were presenting to Leader Jeffries the other day? What caused that whole ruckus?
Precisely, Joe. I mean, I went over to ask him to sign on to a one-year extension of the Affordable Care Act premium tax credits that were put in place during COVID. Democrats put them in place for 4 years, slated to expire at the end of this year. And so I asked him to join a bipartisan bill to extend it by a year, since he claims this is what he cares about and is what he is fighting for. And one would think that if there's a clean one-year extension on the table, that he would be interested in doing that. But the reality, Joe, is that's not what he's interested in. He and Chuck Schumer have shut the government down because they are petrified of AOC and Zohran Mamdani. You heard in the exchange he refused to answer whether or not he supports Zohran Mamdani. Wouldn't condemn him. Yeah, wouldn't condemn him
on the show
about his blame the Jews statement on October 7th that he put out. And it just speaks volumes to what this is really about, which is Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries want to show their progressive left base that they're standing up to and fighting back against Donald Trump. Well, and you heard him in his own statements there.
Yeah, he brought up Trump immediately with you. He said, did your boss send you over here or something? But is it possible, and I can see why, if you came to me with that, I don't know whether you are, is it possible to get a one-year extension? You could get that done. Did he just doubt whether you could get that done, or is it not really what they want?
I think it's possible, but it's not really what they want. But I think if the objective is to ensure that the American people don't see a healthcare premium spike, if the objective is to keep the government open, then there's a very easy way to do this. Pass the clean CR that is sitting in the Senate right now. Get all of your Democrats to sign on to this bill. There's already 14 Republicans on it. And we can put enough pressure on leadership to move the bill. But you don't do this at the barrel of a gun. And you don't hold the American people hostage, which is precisely what he's doing, which is contrary to all of his previous statements on this matter. And that's why I went over and called him out. You know, he said last week, if you have something to say it to my face. So I went and said it to his face. And obviously, he didn't like that very much, which is why he was melting down, yelling, screaming, stammering, sputtering all over the place, couldn't answer a question, and just kept yelling about Trump and, you know, saying that I'm embarrassing myself. What's embarrassing is that he and Chuck Schumer are holding the American people hostage for no reason. And that's what I was calling out.
There's a lot of Republicans that are, I don't know, maybe they're more conservative. They don't want to, they want these subsidies to lapse. And they point out that the lapsing of the subsidies isn't the reason that Obamacare and premiums are getting more expensive every year, that it's flaws in the program itself. So they want to just nip it in the bud. But
and Joe, they make a very valid point. If you look at health insurance premiums,
why extend it a year? You are giving the Democrats what they and do I smell an opening here for a deal? Is that the way this is going to finally happen? Is this the way that the reopening occurs? They get a year extension and vote on the clean CR. Is that what you think?
Yeah. So I'll answer both questions. First, my colleagues are right in pointing out that health insurance premiums have risen by over 60% since Obamacare took effect nationwide. So Obamacare was intended to do a number of things, including reducing the overall cost of health insurance and increase access. It has failed miserably in its objective, and the only way it has become affordable is with these premium tax credits and these subsidies, which are used to pay the insurance companies. What I'm saying is, look, we are obviously at a point where this is slated to expire. Americans are struggling after 4 years of Joe Biden's inflationary policies. We don't want to crush them with health care spikes. And so if you extend this a year, it buys us time to actually fix the fundamental problems with our health care system. That to me is a reasonable approach so that the American people don't suffer because of the incompetence of the Biden administration putting these premium tax credits in for 4 years slated to expire, and an Obamacare system that has actually made health care less affordable for the vast majority of Americans. So to me, this is about solving a short-term problem while actually giving us time to fix the longer-term issues here.
That would be about a $45 billion expense. Over 10 years, I understand it's about $450 billion to extend those. So you're talking about a tenth of that. But what guarantees would Democrats have that after they reopen the government I mean, how would this be written? How would they agree to doing that? Because it sounds like there's a possibility that, I mean, I think you're giving in to Democrats, and that's not, on closing the government, they're getting exactly what they want for not voting for a CR. That's a bad precedent, but at least we'd get the government reopened again.
We already had this bill in the works before they shut the government down. A number of us realized this was an issue, and we're working with leadership on it. The Democrats are entirely wrong to have shut the government down. They're entirely wrong to trying to be extort leadership and the White House and try to get their policy demands. This is a serious issue that we have to address, however. And so my point is open up the government, pass the clean CR that has been sitting in the Senate for nearly 3 weeks. Chuck Schumer always said, we got to keep the government funded and open. We got to pass clean CRs. You don't, bang your fist on the table. You don't stomp your feet and demand your way. So they need to do that. They need to open the government. Leader Thune has already said they are open to discussing these subsidies once the government is open. So to me, there's no guarantee to give them. There's no quid pro quo. They need to do their job. They need to make sure our troops are getting paid. They need to make sure that those Americans that rely on critical programs like WIC and SNAP have the funding for that. We have a clean CR to do all that. So pass it, open the government, and then let's address fiscal year 26 approach and issues like this.
I was trying to figure out why Leader Jeffries is so involved. It's already passed the House, but I guess I'd have to ask you the same. Question. It's not your problem. It's Schumer's problem and Thune's problem. But it is a problem, and military pay is coming up. I think in a couple of October 15th. So it'll be over by then, don't you think? I think something.
Unfortunately, Joe, no, I don't think so. I think Chuck Schumer is so petrified of his left flank. Remember back in March,
the military's not going to get paid. All the government workers are not going to get paid except for congressional members.
Right. Well, look at Schumer's quote yesterday. Every day is getting better for us. Who is us? The Democrats, not the American people, not our military, not our border patrol. This is fundamentally wrong. It's why, by the way, when Joe Biden was president, I pushed back against Republicans who wanted to shut the government down over the open border policies. While I fundamentally disagreed with Biden's open borders, I did not think shutting the government down was actually going to solve the problem. And herein lies the fundamental issue. They are not shutting the government down over health care. They're shutting the government down to show their progressive left base that they're fighting. That's what this is about. It has nothing to do with health care. If it did, they would actually sign on to the bill that would extend it by a year. And that's what I was going to Leader Jeffries to point out, the absurdity of his position.
Yeah, but that made him very, that made him very uncomfortable when you put it in the light of day like that. I can see his point. It's like, oh, stop. Anyway, thank you. Cuomo, it was 22. It's now 13 points difference. Is there any way that Mamdani is not the mayor?
Look, I think obviously so long as it's a three-person race, it makes it very difficult to get to 50. Yeah, to get to 50, which is really what needs to happen here. Okay. Whoever the opposition is needs to get to 50. But obviously Cuomo is seen a little bump with Adams getting out. Yep. There's still some time left. You got to duke it out and make the case to New Yorkers about how disastrous Zohran Mamdani really will be. You looked at his blame the Jews statement the other day, which was unconscionable. At a time President Trump is negotiating peace, he's blaming the Jews for being victims on October 7th. And you look at his policies from freezing the rent to free busing, government-run grocery stores, defunding the police, shutting down prisons, legalizing prostitution. It's absurd. It's absurd on its face, and it will lead to a mass exodus out of New York. So New Yorkers need to put politics aside, and, we need to rally and make sure that Zohran Mamdani is not the mayor of New York City.